The arena sat cloaked in silence, broken only by the whispering wind that stirred the dust across the open field. Spectators filled the wooden stands under a gray morning sky, their murmured conversations dissolving into stunned quiet as the gate creaked open. All eyes turned. What they saw made the world pause. A girl in a wheelchair, barely 16, slowly rolled forward, her fingers steady on the wheels, her face pale but determined. The hard-packed dirt of the arena stretched wide before her, dwarfed by the towering silhouette of a restless black stallion at its center. She moved without hesitation, one push at a time, each turn of the wheel crunching faintly beneath her. The announcer, halfway through introducing the morning's events, stopped mid-sentence. The air grew heavier. No one had expected Lily Dawson. Not since the accident. Her name hadn't been on the roster, and yet here she was, slim, fragile-looking, her long auburn hair pulled back into a loose braid. Her spine curved slightly forward, as if her body remembered motion that her legs could no longer make. But it was her eyes, burning with something fierce, something unshakable, that caught the crowd in a collective breath. In the shadows of the arena gate, her father stood frozen. He had argued with her that morning, begging her not to go through with it. Her mother hadn't spoken much at all, just watched Lily pack a small bag with gloved hands, her movements quiet and sure. Lily had grown up on the back of horses. From the time she was old enough to walk, she'd been riding, competing, winning. Her room was still lined with ribbons, dusty photographs of county fair victories, and newspaper clippings of the young equestrian prodigy. At age 12, she had been named the youngest rider to train a wild Mustang from scratch. Her future was mapped in hoofbeats and trophies. Then came the fall. One misstep during a rainy afternoon ride on a mountain trail changed everything. A spooked gelding, a slippery slope, and a tumble that seemed to last forever. She had felt her spine snap the moment she hit the rocky earth. Doctors had told her she would never walk again. No feeling from the waist down. No more horses. No more rides. No more dreams. But dreams don't disappear quietly. The past year had been a storm of grief, therapy, and silence. Lily hadn't cried after the diagnosis. She hadn't screamed. Instead, she had stared at the ceiling of her hospital room for 3 days without speaking. It wasn't until she met Eva, her physical therapist, that she showed signs of wanting to live again. Eva had been the one to mention the upcoming horse event in town. "Even if you just watch," she said. "Sometimes just being near them can help." But Lily didn't want to watch. Her return to the arena wasn't about defiance. It was about survival. Something inside her had withered over the months, shriveled like a plant starved of light. Only the scent of hay, the thunder of hooves, the whisper of a mane brushing against her face could bring that part of her back to life. The stallion shifted at the far end of the arena, his black coat gleaming even beneath the overcast sky. A volunteer handler clutched the lead rope, but the animal yanked against it, nostrils flaring, muscles rippling with unease. He was a wild Mustang, captured in a recent roundup and too unpredictable for public handling. Rumors swirled about how he had nearly trampled 2 handlers during transport, how no one could get close to him. He was meant to be shown today for observation only, no one would dare attempt to train him. Until now. Lily's wheelchair stopped about 10 feet inside the arena. Her breath was slow, deliberate. Her chest rose and fell beneath her fitted navy jacket. There were no reins in her hands, no saddle waiting. Just her and the wild. A murmur rippled through the stands. Some leaned forward, others pulled out their phones. Somewhere above, a hawk called out into the wind. The stallion saw her. He stilled. His ears flicked forward, his eyes sharp and wary. The handler stiffened, pulling back on the rope, but the horse resisted. Lily remained motionless, her arms resting lightly on her lap. Her mouth curled just slightly, not a smile, but something softer. She tilted her head and whispered, though no one could hear what she said. She had named him Onyx the moment she saw his picture in the local rescue post. His coat was black like volcanic glass, and his eyes, those wild, mournful eyes, reminded her of her own reflection in the weeks after the accident. Onyx neighed sharply and stomped a hoof. Dust rose in angry puffs around him. The handler tried again to pull him back, but the stallion reared, jerking the rope from the man's hands. Gasps shot through the crowd. But Lily didn't move. She watched him, watched the flare of his nostrils, the tightness in his flanks, the way his chest heaved like a creature trapped between fury and fear. Her hands clenched the arms of her chair, not in panic but in restraint. She would not scream. She would not reach out. She knew better. She remembered what it felt like to be approached by someone who didn't understand pain. She remembered the platitudes, "You're still lucky to be alive," or, "At least you didn't hit your head." None of it meant anything when you woke each day feeling half alive. Onyx tossed his head and began pacing in a wide arc, circling her like a restless tide. Lily pivoted slightly, keeping him in her peripheral view, heart pounding but face unreadable. She wasn't sure what she expected. A charge? A retreat? A fight? What she didn't expect was stillness. Onyx stopped. Dead center. 10 feet away. Dust swirled between them like smoke from an unseen fire. He dropped his head slightly, ears flicking, and let out a long, low breath. It wasn't submission. It wasn't surrender. It was curiosity. Lily exhaled. A sound from the sidelines, her father's voice, low and urgent, reached her ears. "That's enough, Lily. Come back now." But she didn't respond. She couldn't. Because in that moment she saw something break in Onyx's eyes, not a crack of weakness, but the release of something long buried. She saw her own fear mirrored in him, the way his muscles twitched like he expected pain from every corner. She knew what it was to expect pain. She whispered again. Her voice was low, intimate. Her lips barely moved. Her shoulders relaxed. Onyx took a step forward. Another. His hooves made no sound over the soft ground. 100 people sat frozen, not even breathing. No one shouted now. No one dared interrupt whatever was happening. He came within 6 feet. 4. 2. And then he stopped. He didn't bolt. Didn't rear. He stood there, staring into the face of a girl who could no longer run, no longer ride, but still carried the fire of someone who refused to be broken. Lily blinked away the tears that stung the corners of her eyes. She didn't reach for him. Didn't beg. Didn't even flinch when his breath touched her cheek. He was wild. But so was she. The silence held like glass. Delicate. Absolute. Then the wind shifted. Onyx raised his head, snorted, and turned away, but not out of fear. His steps were calm, deliberate, as he walked a slow circle and returned to the center of the arena, his back to her. Lily's eyes followed him, her throat tightening. She wasn't sure if what happened meant anything to anyone else. But to her, it was everything. She had come not for answers, not for sympathy, but to feel something again. She did. The gate opened behind her with a soft metallic groan. The moment had ended. But the story hadn't. Lily turned her chair slowly and began to roll back toward the entrance, her heart pounding. The crowd remained hushed, stunned. Her father watched her, his expression unreadable. Her mother's hand covered her mouth. As Lily reached the edge of the arena, she glanced back once. Onyx stood still in the center, watching her. And for the first time in a very long time, Lily felt seen. Not as the girl in the chair. Not as the tragedy. But as the spark that hadn't gone out. Not yet. Not ever. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the Dawson ranch as Lily wheeled herself down the gravel path that led to the barn. The crunch beneath her tires was rhythmic, steady, grounding. Her hands, red from friction, gripped the wheels tightly, not out of exhaustion but from focus. That moment in the arena had burned itself into her memory like a brand. She couldn't shake the feeling. Onyx had seen something in her, something no one else had dared to look for. Inside the barn, the scent of hay and leather welcomed her like an old friend. Dust floated in the golden light pouring through the rafters. A soft whinny echoed from the back stall. Lily paused. It wasn't Onyx. He was still at the rescue center, but even thinking of him made her chest tighten. Her father was there, standing with his back to her, his broad shoulders slumped forward as he adjusted a worn saddle hanging on a hook. His silence had followed her all the way home. He hadn't said a word after the arena, just opened the truck door and let her climb in on her own. She hadn't expected praise. But the silence? That was worse. I wasn't trying to prove anything, she said softly. He turned slowly. His face, usually sun-toughened and stoic, looked pale. Older. You could have been hurt, Lily. He wasn't going to hurt me. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Her voice trembled, but she kept her chin high. I saw it in his eyes. He's afraid. Just like I was. Her father sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. That's exactly why you shouldn't be the one getting close to him. She stared at him, the silence pressing in again. Why? Because I'm in this chair? Because I'm broken? His head snapped up. Don't say that. Why not? It's what everyone thinks. Not me, he said, his voice firm now. Never me. But Lily, I lost you once already. On that trail. I can't do it again. The weight of those words sank into her. For a second, she forgot how to breathe. Her accident hadn't only stolen her legs, it had stolen his peace. Her fall had left cracks in both of them, just in different places. I didn't go to the arena to scare you, she said, more gently now. I went because I needed to remember who I was before this happened. He looked down. And who are you now? She hesitated, then whispered, I'm still figuring that out. They stood in silence, broken only by the occasional shuffle of hooves from the stalls. The tension between them was heavy, but neither walked away. That was something. Later that evening, Lily sat at her window, watching the stars bloom across the sky like scattered embers. Her fingers rested on the notebook in her lap, sketches of horses scribbled across the pages. She flipped to a clean sheet and drew Onyx. His proud head, the curve of his muscular shoulders, the sharp intensity of his eyes. A knock on her door made her jump. Her mother stepped in, holding a phone. Someone's asking for you. Lily frowned. Who? Eva. She says it's important. Lily took the phone, her fingers curling around it like it might disappear. Eva. I heard what happened, came the therapist's familiar voice, breathless and excited. You walked into that arena with more courage than most people have in their whole bodies. Lily smiled faintly. I didn't walk. You know what I mean. Lily, the rescue center called me. Lily's heart skipped. What? They want to know if you'd be willing to work with Onyx. He hasn't responded to anyone the way he did with you. They were stunned. They think you might be the only person who can reach him. For a second, the world fell away. Just her, the phone, and the sudden thundering in her chest. But, she began. I told them you'd say yes, Eva said, gently cutting her off. Unless you're too scared. A laugh escaped Lily, quick and raw. I'm not scared. Good. They're expecting you tomorrow. When Lily returned the phone to her mother, her hands were shaking. Not from fear. From anticipation. The next morning dawned cold and bright. A thin frost laced the fence rails as Lily's father lifted her chair into the truck bed. They didn't speak much on the way to the rescue center, but the silence felt different, less heavy, more expectant. The facility sat on the edge of a wooded area, its paddocks wide and open. Horses roamed freely in designated spaces, some injured, others simply abandoned. Onyx stood alone in the farthest pen, his black coat shimmering under the sun. As the truck approached, he lifted his head. He saw her. Lily's breath caught. A volunteer approached them at the gate, clipboard in hand. We'll bring him into the round pen. You'll be behind the fence. We just want to see how he reacts to you again. Lily nodded, her fingers white-knuckled around her lap. The pen was circular, with high wooden rails and a layer of soft dirt inside. Lily wheeled herself to the edge, locking her brakes as two handlers led Onyx in. He fought them at first, jerking his head and stamping, but when his gaze locked onto Lily, he went still. The handlers dropped the ropes and backed away. Lily leaned forward slightly. "Hey boy," she whispered. Onyx didn't bolt. He walked toward her, slowly at first, cautiously. Then quicker. He stopped just short of the fence. Their eyes met. The staff watched in awe as Onyx lowered his massive head and exhaled. Right beside her. "He's choosing you," one of the handlers murmured. Lily reached out just a few inches. He didn't flinch. Her fingers brushed his muzzle. Warm. Soft. Alive. It was the first time she had touched a horse since the fall. She didn't cry. Not yet. Later, back at home, she told her parents she wanted to volunteer at the center. Not just with Onyx but with all the horses. Her father was hesitant, her mother quietly supportive. They agreed, on one condition: she had to bring someone with her. Eva volunteered instantly. The weeks that followed were a mix of bruises, breakthroughs, and slow victories. Onyx was unpredictable, still wild in many ways, but Lily was patient. She worked with him from the chair, using voice commands, body language, and gentle persistence. Their bond grew, strengthened by shared silence and mirrored fear. Sometimes Onyx would resist. He'd rear or bolt and Lily would retreat, never out of anger, only respect. She knew trust wasn't built in leaps but in inches. One day, as the sun broke over the hills, Lily wheeled into the pen and called him. He came trotting, his head held high, his tail flicking with energy. And when she asked him to circle left, he did. Cheers erupted from the sidelines. Volunteers, staff, even her father, who had been watching from behind the fence. Lily smiled, tears in her eyes. It wasn't just about walking anymore. It was about moving forward. That night, she sat on the porch with her father, watching the stars. "He listens to you," he said after a long silence. Lily nodded. "Because I don't ask him to be something he's not." Her father looked at her, his face unreadable. "You're stronger than I ever knew." She didn't respond. She didn't have to. Because strength wasn't about standing tall, it was about showing up. And tomorrow, she'd show up again. Not to prove she could conquer the wild, but to remind herself she still belonged in it. The air was thick with tension as the wind picked up, sweeping across the paddocks and stirring the dust beneath Lily's wheels. It had been 3 months since she started working with Onyx. In that time, she had come to know every twitch of his ear, every flick of his tail, and every hesitation that signaled he was teetering between trust and fear. But today, he wasn't himself. He circled the pen relentlessly, hooves churning up the earth as if something unseen gnawed at his nerves. Lily sat just beyond the railing, hands resting on her thighs, watching him with a quiet intensity. She could sense it, he was slipping. Not from her, not completely, but from whatever progress they had fought to build together. Something had changed. Eva knelt beside her, handing over the training rope. "You sure you want to push him today?" "He's off." Lily didn't answer right away. She was trying to understand what Onyx wasn't saying. His energy was restless, bordering on frantic, but it wasn't defiance. It felt more like desperation. "He needs something from me," Lily finally whispered. "I don't think it's about training anymore." Eva gave a small nod, her eyes full of concern. "Then let him come to you." Lily unlocked her chair and wheeled into the center of the ring. The handlers around the fence stiffened, and one took a nervous step forward, but Eva held up a hand to stop them. Onyx halted. His body went rigid as he saw her enter. For a moment, the entire world narrowed into that circle of dust and tension. Lily locked eyes with him. "It's okay," she said softly, lifting her hand just a few inches. "I'm here. I'm still here." He snorted, pawed the ground, but didn't run. She could feel his pain radiating off him like heat. Somewhere deep in his memory, something was bleeding. Horses carried trauma differently. They didn't cry. They fled. They turned to wildness. And now, she recognized what she had missed all morning. He wasn't resisting her. He was trying not to break in front of her. "I know what that feels like," she said, her voice barely audible. With painstaking slowness, she leaned down, retrieving a soft cloth from her lap. She'd brought it from home. It smelled like cedar and leather and dust, like the barn she had grown up in. She held it out, her arm trembling from the reach. He didn't move for what felt like hours. Then, with careful steps, he closed the distance and lowered his head. He didn't sniff it. He pressed his face into her palm. It wasn't a test. It was surrender. That night Lily couldn't sleep. Her body ached, not just from the effort of the day, but from the emotional toll. The deeper she walked into Onyx's world, the more she realized how many pieces of herself still needed mending. They were mirrors, she and the horse. Both torn from the world they once knew, both trying to reclaim their place in it. In the quiet hours before dawn, she wheeled to her desk and opened her sketchbook. She began drawing the arena, not the shape of it, but the feeling. Circles within circles, layers of light and shadow, trust etched in the lines like muscle. By the time sunlight spilled through the window, a new idea had taken root in her mind. When she arrived at the rescue center later that morning, her father was already there, leaning on the fence with a thermos in hand. It was a silent truce, his presence. He never said much during her sessions, but he never missed one, either. She approached him, adjusting the straps on her glove. "I want to try something." He gave her a sideways glance. "What kind of something?" "I think he's ready for a saddle." He blinked. "Lily." "I'm not riding him," she clarified quickly. "Not yet. But I want to help him wear one again. Slowly. Safely." He looked down at the thermos like it held the answer. "You think he'll let you?" "I think he needs to." They worked together in the prep area, her father lifting the worn saddle down from its hook, Lily brushing it carefully. The familiarity of it all made her throat tighten. She remembered being a little girl, helping him oil the leather while he told stories about horses that ran like wind. Now here she was, grown, grounded, but still chasing freedom. In the round pen, Onyx watched them approach. He wasn't agitated today. He was alert, curious, hopeful. Lily waited until he came to her, until he lowered his head like he always did now, then gently rested the saddle blanket across his back. He flinched, but didn't retreat. She spoke to him the entire time. "This doesn't mean you have to carry someone. Not yet. It just means you're strong enough to hold something." Her father handed the saddle over the fence, and together, they eased it onto his back. No straps. No pressure. Just presence. Onyx stood still, eyes closed. It was the beginning of something neither of them fully understood yet. By the end of the week, he was moving with it, tentatively at first, then with more grace. Lily walked beside him from her chair, one hand on the rein, the other balancing her lap. The sight of them drew attention now. Staff began to record their sessions, posting clips online. Comments flooded in. People stunned by the bond, inspired by their journey. A local journalist asked to do a story. Then a national outlet called. Lily said no to both. This wasn't about a spotlight. But it was about a goal. One morning, Eva handed Lily a folded paper. "It's from the county fair," she said. "They're hosting a horse and handler showcase next month. Not a competition, just an exhibition. All breeds. All stories. They want you and Onyx." Lily stared at the flyer. Her heart beat like a drum. The thought of entering a public arena again was terrifying, but also thrilling. It wouldn't be about performance. It would be about proof. Proof that healing looked different for everyone, and that sometimes the wildest hearts made the most loyal companions. She took the paper home, stared at it for hours, then placed it on the kitchen table where her parents would see it. The next morning, her father slid it toward her. "If you're doing it," he said, "you won't do it alone." They began preparing. The days grew longer, the sessions more focused. Lily and Onyx worked in the open pastures now, moving through obstacle courses and responding to subtle cues. Every day brought a new test. A sudden noise. A gust of wind. A flapping flag. Onyx startled at first, but he always returned to her. Always. The night before the exhibition, Lily couldn't sleep. She paced the room in her chair, hands trembling. Her mother knocked softly and stepped in with a cup of tea. "He's ready," she said. Lily looked up. "What if I'm not?" Her mother crouched down, brushing the hair from her daughter's forehead. "You've been ready since the day you rolled into that arena and refused to back down." Lily smiled weakly. "It doesn't feel like that." "It never does. But courage isn't a feeling, Lily. It's a choice." The next morning, the fairgrounds buzzed with life. Children with balloons, families eating kettle corn, horses neighing from makeshift stalls. The exhibition ring was set up near the center, with bleachers lining both sides. A banner read * Hearts United, a showcase of hope. *. Lily waited behind the gate, Onyx beside her. He looked regal, his coat brushed until it gleamed, a single braided ribbon woven into his mane. She wore her jeans and boots, just like before the fall, and a leather vest embroidered with a small, silver mustang. The announcer's voice boomed across the field. "And now, please WL." The arena was silent, yet charged with anticipation as Lily and Onyx stepped into the light. The sun had reached its golden hour, casting a soft radiance across the sand, tinting the dust in hues of amber and rose. Every eye was on them, families seated in the bleachers, trainers leaning forward, veterans and volunteers alike pausing mid-sentence. No one spoke. No one moved. They watched. Lily felt the hush press against her chest. Her heart was pounding so loudly she could almost hear it echo. But Onyx? He was calm, still, poised beside her like a knight before a charge. For all his history, all the flinching, the bolting, the haunted stares, now he stood like a sentinel of strength. She whispered, "You're safe. I'm with you." He didn't need the reassurance anymore, but she needed to say it, for her own trembling hands, for her own racing thoughts. As they advanced toward the center of the arena, the wheels of her chair whispered over the sand, and Onyx's hooves moved in sync beside her. This wasn't about performance, not about showing off tricks or polished step. This was about memory, about healing, about everything they'd both survived. The trauma, the years of silence, the fear that clung like a second skin, this was the moment they shed it all. She gave the first cue, a soft flick of her wrist. Onyx circled around her, slow and deliberate, each stride measured. His ears were tilted back, listening only to her. When she turned, he pivoted beside her, mirroring the motion without hesitation. It was a dance of trust, the kind that wasn't taught but earned through pain and patience. The crowd remained silent, mesmerized. Then came the part they hadn't rehearsed, the risk. She reached down and unclipped the rein. "Let him go." The crowd gasped as the rope fell free, but Onyx didn't bolt. He stood, untethered, yet entirely present. For one heart-stopping second, Lily feared he might retreat into the wildness again. The open space, the noise, the strange smells, it was all a trigger. But he walked to her, unprompted, uncoerced, and lowered his head into her lap. A child in the front row began to cry. Lily's own breath caught. She placed her hands on either side of his face and whispered something only he could hear. The moment lasted just a heartbeat longer, then she gave the cue for their final move. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't loud. She turned and wheeled forward, and Onyx followed, stepping into a slow trot as he moved beside her around the ring. Together, they made a full circle, horse and rider, even if she never touched a saddle. The illusion was powerful enough. No reins, no restraints, just the silent language between two souls who knew what it meant to fall and rise again. When they came to a stop, Lily raised her hand and Onyx stood tall, as if answering a call beyond training, something primal, something free. And then the silence broke. The arena erupted into applause. But it wasn't the kind of wild cheering that comes with fanfare. It was stunned, reverent. People stood with tears in their eyes. Parents lifted their children so they could see. Elderly veterans saluted. Trainers pressed hands over their hearts. Lily blinked against the tears. Not for herself, but for what Onyx had just done. For what it meant. He had trusted her, not just with his training, but with his soul. Eva ran down from the sidelines, her face wet. Lily, you did it. He did it. Lily shook her head gently. We did it. They didn't stay long after the showcase. Fame wasn't the goal. A few photographers asked for pictures, and Lily obliged with a smile, but she was already thinking about getting Onyx home, back to the quiet pastures and the wide sky he loved. Back at the rescue center, Onyx was led into his paddock, where he immediately rolled in the dust, kicking up his legs like a fool. Lily watched, laughing. Her father joined her at the fence, arms crossed. "You were brilliant," he said simply. She looked up at him. "Did you ever think we'd get here?" He considered the question. "No. But not because I didn't believe in you. I just didn't know how much fight you had left." "I didn't either," she said softly. Then she turned back to Onyx, who now stood shaking the dust from his mane like a lion. But he knew. In the following weeks, Lily and Onyx became something of local legend. Kids from nearby schools came to visit the rescue center. Some brought letters, others brought apples. A girl in a wheelchair asked Lily how she got so brave. Lily answered honestly, by being terrified every day and showing up anyway. Eva expanded the rescue's outreach program. They began working with veterans, trauma survivors, children with disabilities. Onyx became a symbol, no longer the wild stallion who couldn't be tamed, but the guardian who had learned to trust. And Lily? She began teaching. Not just horse handling, but emotional resilience, communication, trust building. Her story inspired more than admiration, it inspired action. Parents signed up their kids. Adults with buried scars stepped forward. People who had given up on connection came back to try again. But one evening, months after the exhibition, Lily sat in her room, turning over something new in her mind. A dream she hadn't allowed herself to speak aloud. When her father knocked, she was already ready. "I want to ride again," she told him. He looked at her and for once didn't respond with worry. Instead, he walked to the closet, pulled out a saddle blanket, and laid it on the table between them. "Then we'll do it right. Slow. Safe. Together." She smiled through the tears. They began the process gently, acclimating Onyx to a specially designed saddle, testing her balance, securing her with adaptive supports. It took weeks, but Lily never rushed it. Every step was deliberate, measured. Onyx was watchful, careful, as if he sensed the gravity of this new leap. The day she mounted was quiet. No crowd. No cameras. Just her father, Eva, and the horse who had carried her long before he ever wore a saddle. He stood still as she was lifted onto his back. She sat there, unmoving at first, listening to his breath beneath her, feeling the powerful rhythm of his heart through the leather and muscle. Then she whispered, "Walk on." He moved. And for the first time,